Right, so in this video, we're going to cover all of your short game shots. We're going to talk about the difference between a chip and a pitch. I'm going to show you how to play them both. And then at the end of the video, I've got a really cool shot that I'd love you to try. Might help you even hold the odd shot. So we're starting here with a chip shot. Now, a chip shot spends more time on the ground than it does in the air. And for a chip shot, I'd be looking to vary the club that's in my hand, depending on the situation. I've got myself a 9-iron here, based on where the flag is and how much green I've got to work with. So let's go through the setup, and then I've got two great little drills that are going to help you execute the shot better. So we need a really narrow stance. My heels are only going to be about the width of my club head apart, and I want both feet to be slightly flared out. In terms of ball position, if I let my golf club hang from the buttons on my shirt, I want that ball to be pretty much underneath that, maybe fractionally back of it, but middle of that will be absolutely fine. And I'm going to start and put a little bit more weight on my lead side, so a little bit on my left foot. When we look from this down the line view, the really key thing that we have to do in setup is we have to raise the grip up a little bit. Now when I do that, it encourages me to walk in a little closer to the ball. If there's one thing that you could take from this video when chipping, it would be that. Standing in closer and raise the handle up does so many good things. It means that the club head starts to move a little bit more upwards and downwards, helps me strike. It means that the direction that I swing in is closer, not it isn't, but it's closer to straight back, straight through. And it means that the club face has far less rotation through that motion. You imagine I stand this far away, the club starts to move inwards a lot more, the face rotates more, and it doesn't work up and down. So it's really hard to chip well if you stand too far away from the golf ball. I'd love you to stand in much closer and raise the handle up. Now in terms of my hand placement on the golf club, I'd like you to go with what you feel is comfortable. I tend to just let my arms hang comfortably straight, and I'm going to grip the golf club wherever that might be. On this particular shot with the 9-iron, it's meaning I'm going down the handle a tiny bit, but it's not really a exact amount. It's more just trying to get myself comfortable and holding the golf club where I want it to be. So I've got a nice narrow stance, ball position, standing much closer. The final thing I have to do is just read the green. What's this going to do? Now this one is going to break from the left to the right, so I have to factor that in. So that's the setup. Let's hit a shot, and then I'm going to give you two little exercises which can help you execute them a little better. Oh, a little bit too much pace on that one, but well, I'm going to give myself that. Right, let's go through those two little drills that are going to help. The two drills that are really going to help you, I've got an alignment stick here. We're going to position it in such a way that it really helps me to do the right thing. You'll notice that I've got it, around about a club head width inside the golf ball. And then it's at a pretty shallow angle, headed obviously away in here. Now the reason that's in place is because the shape of the golf swing makes a huge difference to a chipping stroke. What I often see as a bit of an issue is that a golfer might adopt a really nice setup, but the golf club gets sucked inside too early. Now if I do that, obviously I'm going to make contact with that alignment stick and it gives me some feedback. We don't really, on these shots, want the feeling or the sensation that the shoulders are turning, because that turning motion will cause the club head to stay too low to the ground and move too much inwards. We want the golf club to effectively be working a little straighter back and a little bit more upwards. That's where this stick comes in. So with that stick in place, I'm able to move the golf club a little straighter back and a little bit more upwards. And how I do that is by what I do with my shoulders. I'm feeling almost a little bit more of a rocking motion, similar to a putting stroke, less of a turning motion. That movement of the club head more upwards and straight back helps me deliver the club more consistently on the way down with a much, much better strike. So I should be able to, if I've done this correctly, hit this little chip shot without making contact with the alignment stick. Now it wasn't a bad shot, but I did actually just make contact with it. So I'd probably give myself 6 or 7 out of 10 there. But there's a little bit of indicator there that that club sucked inwards a little bit. However, the shot wasn't too bad, a little bit strong. So let's just hit one more, see if we can make a better job of this one. Okay, that's going to be a little bit short on distance, but it was a better technique. I didn't hit the alignment stick. So that's our first little drill. The second drill is really simple, and I love this one because it is so simple. We have a setup. We've gone through what that setup looks like, okay? And very simply, this little exercise is you're going to stand here, take a mental snapshot of what your setup looks like. You're going to hit a chip shot. Now, when we hit a chip shot, we have a finished position. A little bit of body rotation. My body starts to face more towards the target. If I hold my hands in place and simply rotate my body back towards the golf ball and tip over, I should be back again into that setup position. What happens if I, through the ball, get a little bit wristy, too much hands, maybe my arms buckle? What happens then is when I turn my body back, you can see how I'm not in that setup position. So there's going to be lots of things that you might do, such as this with the arms. Again, if I turn the body back, that's not where I was at setup. So what we're really looking to do is take our starting position and just move it through the golf ball. There's my end position. If I rotated back and tipped over, I'm back to where I was at setup. The key one really for many of you will be this motion. So many of you will have a trail hand which accelerates the club a little bit too much through the golf ball, and then you end up in this position. When you turn back, it won't look anything like setup. So let me go ahead and do that little exercise. And if I turn back after the shot, I should be back into my setup position. Okay, not bad chip shot, turn back, tip over, not a million miles away. So that is a chip shot. Use a variety of different clubs depending on the situation that's in front of you. Get the ball to spend more time on the ground than it does in the air, and you'll leave yourself pretty short putts, probably even shorter than those ones. More up and downs is definitely going to help you score. So what about a pitch shot? So we've now come a little bit further back from the green to talk about a pitch shot. A pitch shot is different to a chip shot. It's generally hit over a longer distance, and it often spends more time in the air than it does on the ground, which is perfect for this situation here. Now, pitch shot is slightly different in terms of club selection. I would tend to pitch with probably one or two of my clubs, and normally they're my wedges. It's my 60, my 56, or in this case, it's my 52. So I'm tending to use a smaller selection of clubs. However, you could pitch with almost any club in the bag depending on the situation. So we make a slight setup change, and then really it's understanding the motion itself. And we're talking in this video about a basic pitch, which is a mid-flight. Longer term, you'd love to have the ability to alter that flight. So we take a slightly wider stance here, still fairly narrow, but probably closer to 2 club head widths apart. Ball is still directly in the middle of me, under my zip. This time, I'm not really going to set a huge amount of weight forward. I kind of want to be a little bit more balanced. And I'm going to try and get the golf club fairly neutral at address. I don't really want much shaft lean. Certainly don't want the club leaning back too much. So I'm trying to be as neutral as I can. Neutral weight, neutral shaft, ball position is right in the middle. Now, when we're looking from down the line, I'm not really going to be trying to get super close and raise the handle up. That's more for those chip shots. I'm going to be stood a little bit more of a, let's call it a natural distance from the golf ball. So this would be my setup when I'm hitting my pitch shots around the green. So once we've taken that setup, we can start to look at the actual motion itself. Now, the motion with a pitch shot is going to be slightly greater or slightly longer on both sides of the ball. We want the ball to carry a further greater distance, and therefore we need some more speed. So what I'm really looking for here is to move my body back with a pivot. Notice how my legs are rotating, my chest is rotating, and then I have a pivot on the way through. Again, body's rotating. You can see my trail heel is slightly lifted. Weight is on the lead side, body's facing the target. We're starting on these pitch shots to see a little bit of a weight shift as I transition through to that finished position. So there's a lot greater body rotation in these shots. Now, along with that, we might start to be introducing a little bit of wrist set, wrist hinge, wrist cock, whatever you want to call that, but it's limited. It's not a huge amount. As we said a moment ago, as you start to hit higher shots, lower shots, and do a lot more with the golf ball, you'll be utilizing those wrists very differently. But for this basic shot, we want to try and keep them to a minimum. We don't really want a huge amount of wrist set. So I'm taking my setup, I'm using my body pivot back, and I'm going through. Now my goal when I'm making these practice swings is to land the golf club where the ball would be. I'm actively trying to contact the ground, but the way that I'm set up and the way that I'm moving the golf club means that it's going to be the sole of the golf club, is where that number is written, the bounce. That's really important. And because of that, you'll notice that there's no divot. And because there's no divot, that means that I can have the confidence to hit the ground. So I'm not really thinking of the ball. I'm simply trying to get my golf club to land on the ground directly underneath the golf ball, in effect. So let's see if we can go ahead and hit one. There's my nice setup. Body pivot back, body pivot through, land the golf club. And you'll notice that higher flight. And again, I've carried that a little bit too far. It's maybe rolled a few feet past, but you'll notice that different flight, a little bit higher than a chip shot. It's carried a little bit further and it stopped a little bit sooner. Now, I can make that ball do different things with different clubs, but like I said, I'm going to stick to pretty much those three wedges to hit most of my pitch shots. So, how do you control distance with that shot? Well, might not be the answer that you want, but you don't overthink it. You just let the situation that's out there dictate that for you. You know, if I wanted to land the ball a bit closer to me, you know, I just use that landing zone as a visual when I'm making my practice swings, and I just react to that. At no point in my pitching motion do I ever think about how far the club is going back, how far it's going through. I simply just let the situation dictate that. Because I was looking at something more towards the front of the green, that influenced the speed of my swing and the length of my swing. So as far as distance control goes, just use your eyes and let that feed your body. So that was a chip and that was a pitch. Here's a little bonus shot, which I tend to use in my game when I'm really, really close. If you do this, you might even hold the odd one. So let's talk about this little bonus shot, if you like. 80% of the chip shots that I hit are done in the style that we've just talked about at the start. However, there are situations like this one when I'm really quite close to the flag. I'm, you know, less than, let's say, a pace from the green, and I'm looking at this thinking, I probably should be in position to try and hold this, but I maybe don't want to use putter because either the surface isn't as smooth as I'd like, or maybe the grass is a little bit too long. What I'll do then is I'll use a slightly different chipping technique. The chipping technique we went through at the start was sort of more in this setup here. But for this shot, I actually treat this almost exactly like it's a putt. So I would take my wedge, and again, that wedge would depend on the situation. I've got 60 here because I'm running down the hill, but I would literally set myself up like I'm hitting a putt. So I change from my normal golf grip to a putting grip, so exactly how I hold my putter. And I would almost set up exactly like I would for a putt, so a little bit of a wider stance and almost a little bit more tilted over. So this is pretty much how I would putt. The only difference is that I would actually lean a little bit more onto my lead side because I want that club to be descending a little bit more into the ball. The way we set up for a putting stroke tends to give us a slightly more ascending strike, which wouldn't work from here. So a putting grip, a putting stance, weight left, and then all I do is I make some little strokes and just again land the club where the ball is. Notice how my legs are not moving at all. And if I do that a couple of times and shuffle in, didn't hold it, but a pretty safe result. So you saw that ball literally just popped into the air, landed, and then rolled out. So effectively, it's a putting stroke with loft. Great for when you're really close to the green and you just want to pop that ball maybe a few feet, maybe a yard into the air and let it roll out. So that is a bonus little shot. Try it, do that, and you might start holding a few of those shots around the greens.